Hey everybody, welcome aboard. Captain Mike here. I'm not going to run a flight today. I've actually been working on Device Interface Manager, setting up the buttons, the dials, the switches, and the annunciators and whatnot. And I'm going to take you through just where I'm at right now. We've made a tremendous amount of progress. So Niles has been working on it constantly, and he's now working on the 7 segment items. So I'm going to run through the entire deck from top to bottom, and we're going to start with the aft overhead. I'm going to run through all the buttons. You'll see me down here on the right, and then you'll see the PMDG 738 aft overhead, what we're going to start with now, up on the screen. And this is being used inside MS 2020. So let's take a look. We'll press the leading edge device button. As you can see, they illuminate. We will take our IRS selectors, bring them over to nav, and let them align. Now, the keypad, my display up here is not working. This monitor actually just went out. It's just a monitor up here that displays the numbers. So I'm going to have to replace that monitor. It's a little small, 5-inch monitor. These two buttons I don't have hooked up. I don't have left and right, so this is not going to work. So if we move on over here, you'll see we have the reversal lights. They do work, although I'm having trouble with my throttle quad. I'm going to have to get into that and see what's going on. But that has nothing to do with DIM, the Device Interface Manager. That's MS 2020 and PMDG. Our EEC switches. And the other side. Our flight recorder. We'll check the Mach speed 1 and 2. And we'll do store warning 1 and 2. And we have 3 green on the landing gear, and the PSEU is out. So that's it for the aft overhead. This is working 100% as it was in X-plane. So next we're going to move on over to the forward overhead. So now we're going to continue with the forward overhead and take a look at the progress that was made there. And we're going to just start at the upper left and work our way down. And flight controls, as you can see, B. Some of these switches I still have to work on the covers. It's usually the 3-way switches that have an issue I have to figure out. This one should be an easy fix. Okay, your damper switch. That seems to be acting up here. I think I'm going to have to take a look at that. And dim. Fuel pumps. And that bus. This side. Oh, there's also the maintenance button. You should be able to see that go in. And we did this already, right? Standby power, center, left, center, and right. Drive disconnects. We have our ground power. And let's cycle that. Yeah, I gotta look into that. Alright, so ground power is good. Bus transfer. And we have our generators. And let's bring that down, up, and on. Okay. Attendant and ground. My wipers aren't hooked up to anything, so they're not going to do anything. In 2020, here we have our window heat. And we can do overheat. TAT. Alright, let's see. Okay, this panel I don't have hooked up. But that's on my end, not Device Interface Manager. There we go. I do this one. Okay, and trip reset. You might be able to see that button go in. And if we spin our dial here, and we can come back down, spin her up. Might be a little hard to see. Here we go. We'll get into the big digits there. And we'll come back down. And we have open, closed, back. Now I have all my lights on this one switch, so I'm gonna have to look at that. That should have popped all of them. I'm gonna have to take a look at that. When we turn offs, taxi, then we have our APU. Actually, let's just start that, shall we? Let's turn these on. And let's just start the APU. Now, if we take a look at the engine start selectors, we have ground. And lights. And let's put this on APU. And we have nothing there right now. Well, that test is done, so we can cycle those. Just waiting on APU power now. There we go. And you can see the 7-segment display changed. So that's basically it for the forward overhead. As you can see, everything that worked in X-Plane 12 is now working in MS 2020 with PMDG and my hardware using Device Interface Manager. Alright, next what we'll do is we'll take a look at the pedestal next. How about that? Because that's another big setup. So I can set the camera up and we'll take a look at all the radios and everything. Alright, that's up next. So now we're going to take a look at the pedestal, and we're going to start with the captain's comm panel. Now as you can see, I have the old style radios, the nav and comm, and they have the new radios, the comm radios anyway. I was able to change the nav. I don't know if I can change the comm radios in there. I haven't looked, I haven't tried. But if you take a look at what I have set up here, as I change the dials, we'll bring them down, the numbers come down, bring them up, they come back up. I use the inner dial, they're coming down, they come up, and the transfer button works. We come down to the nav panel right below it. You can see the dial move and the inside one as well, and we can transfer that over. On the ACP panel you can see I have VHF1, VHF2. I don't have VHF3, high frequencies of the flight, all that other stuff, but I do have NAV1, NAV2, ADF1, ADF2, and the marker. Speaker's not hooked up. So that all works. The boom and all that, none of that is hooked up on my end. We take a look at the cargo panel. We can go from norm to A, back to B, A, over to B, and run our test. Now as you can see, the bottles are already extinguished because I was doing some testing earlier. We'll take a look at the fire panel as well. Overheat detect, we can go right and then left. Same thing with the test, fault in, up, and that's where you can get that indicator up there. There you go, and off to the right. And we can come over to B. Check the bottles, although the bottles are pretty much going to be just about empty because I've been testing. So we're going to unlock that, come up on number 1, off to the left, off to the right, back down, APU, up. Oh, we just lost power. I should have did that later after I finished everything else. And we'll come right here. Check that. Check that. Alright. I'm going to get power to the deck here. And okay, that's back. So fire panel is done. I don't think I missed anything there. I think we did most of the cargo. So here's the test. We went over A and B, right? And we'll alright. Alright, and we'll come over to the comm panel for the first officer. Bring the numbers down, bring them up, down, up, and transfer them over, back and forth. Same thing for the first officer's nav, and comm is good. That'll transfer back and forth. Let me make that number a big difference, easier to see. There you go. Now I know that the PMDG says that it's in op on the weather panel, but all of the buttons here actually work. Transfer, you'll see they go in and out, back and forth. Right, and GC. The dials don't work because they're not hooked up on my end. Same thing on the bottom here. They all work. The ADF radio, antenna, on and off. And if we take a look at the dial, we can dial in these numbers up and down, and transfer them over. Alright. And if we take a look at TCAS, now I have a different TCAS radio than what they have, and they don't offer this style. So I kind of did my own little workaround with that particular panel. And as you can see, we have left and right, which we do on that panel, so I matched that up. And then for the standby, auto, and on, I use it for 2 and 1 as for the standby and whatnot. And for the dial, I have off, that brings it to standby. Let me go back to standby there. We come up 1, and as you can see, it jumps up to the alternate for Europe. Now we're going to skip on that panel exponder, because on my radio next up is TA. So we jump to TA, then we jump to TARA, so it matches the radio. And if you go to ABV on my radio, it'll go back to transponder. So that's how I have that set up. So everything on here works. If I want to perform a test, I hit the clear button on my number keypad, and it will perform. Well, thought it would perform it. Oh, you know what? I put my old profile back in. I'm going to have to go in and set that. Let's see if these numbers are set up. The numbers are set up, though. I set up 1 to bring the numbers up. I set number 4, which is below it, to bring them down. So it's up and down first digit. 2 and 5 is for the second digit to bring them up and down. And the third digit is 3 and 6. And then the final digit is 7 and 0. So I have to go back and edit my profile. That's why I have a couple of issues. I put an old profile back in to do some testing. I didn't put the latest one back. But that's all working. Same thing with the ident button. We press the ident button. It might be hard for you to see it move, but it does move. What do we have next up? Next up, the first officer side, ACP I don't have hooked up on my end. And I don't have a second ADF radio. I only have the one. So if we move down, you'll see I have the rudder trim. That moves. And you can see the gauge actually moves there as well. And we'll come back to the right. Now I also set up the flight door lock, because as you can see it's in op there. Well, I don't know. That might not be set up that way on here. No, it's not. I'm thinking of X-Plane. Picatinga set that up for me, so it actually automatically recenters everything. But that's not the way it is in 2020. Alright, so that's basically back to being center. So that works. Left wing down and right wing down. That works. Stabilizer trim. And then, like, the flight deck door doesn't do anything. And I have a printer, but they don't have one there. So if I wanted to print something, this button work. Yeah, I get nothing but paper. I don't have anything in the CDU to print. But the printer is hooked up through Windows, and it does work. I do get text through there. So now it's just whether or not I can get it through the CDU. Alright, that pretty much takes care of the pedestal. Up next, we'll take a look at the MCP and the EFIS panels, and the MIP. So today we're going to finish off all the panels by taking a look at the EFIS, MCP, and the MIP. And we'll just start with the left-hand side. You should be able to see the fire panel on the captain side going in and out. We can bring up something here. Yeah. Right, so you can see that these work. And we'll do the same thing on the first officer's side. And if we push that fire panel, you can see the fire button going in and out, and we can clear that as well. Move over to the main instrument panel, and we're on VOR1. We can turn that off. Go to ADF1. Off. Back to VOR1. We're on VOR2. We can go off and ADF2. And then back. We have radio minimums We have meters, and we can switch approach, VOR, map, plan, come back out. You can see we can zoom out, zoom back in, and we can see terrain is up there now. Get rid of terrain, position, data, bring up the traffic rings, airport, waypoint, stations. I don't know if there's any weather in the area, but bring that up. If we go to the first officer's side, we can do the same thing. Bring up the traffic rings. We have terrain, position, data, airport, waypoint, station, and I don't think there's any weather in the area. Approach, VOR, map, and plan, and then we can dial in and dial out however we want. So that's working. What else do we have on here? We can change from standard. I don't think I did that over here as well. We can bring that up. So you can see these buttons do actually work. And MCP, let's bring those flight directives off. Bring mine up onto the master. And then we'll bring up the first officer, auto throttle. And disconnect that. We can dial this up, dial it down, up, down. As you can see, I can change the degree of bank I want and altitude. I'm not going to be able to show the vertical speed because we're on the ground. I don't know if these will light up now. I don't think so. But these do work, all of them. I don't have anything programmed in the FMC, so. Oh, but they do work. Command A. Bring it down from here. Okay, let's turn those off completely. That does work. Alright, now let's continue on with the MIP. I don't have the alternate nose wheel steering hooked up, so that switch is not going to work for me. And I have an actual clock. I'm not using buttons that match up with that, so as my clock goes, that clock goes. My main panels, we can check those. Engine, primary flight display, multifunction display, and we can do the lower displays as well. We have our auto throttle, and autopilot, auto flight setup, lights test. We can bring that down and go to dim. I don't have N1 and speed reference set up here, so they're just basically set on auto. We can look at the fuel that's been used, back to rate, and then we can reset the fuel. Engine data. And auto brake. Rejected takeoff, and then off 1, 2, 3, and max. And then back to off. And first officer's side. The auto flight system, and as you can see, that all works. My lighting and all that works inside the flight deck. It's not going to do anything in there. And we have the ground proximity test. Yeah, we'll push that button. As you can see, that comes on. And we have flap inhibit, gear inhibit, terrain inhibit, and the PMDG doesn't have runway inhibit, so that switch is not going to work. That's pretty much it for the entire flight deck. I have a couple items I have to look at, and that's my fault because I put in an older profile because I was fooling around and I didn't want to mess up the good one that I was working on, and I forgot to put it back in. So anyway, that is pretty much it. For those of you that are interested in Device Interface Manager, if you want to take a look at it, because this is not just for Flight Deck Solutions hardware. You set up your own profiles and you can get yourself up and running. But I'll put a link down in the bottom there. It's on Discord, so you can join the discussion, and you can download the latest version or the developer's version, which is what I'm using here, to do some additional work. And join the party. Get in on the fun, get in on it early, so as it develops, when it's ready to be released, you'll be ahead of the game, you'll be up and running already. Anyway, everybody, take care, and Niles, thanks, man, you're doing a great job, and I'll catch everybody on my next run. Getting a little winded, and my voice is starting to change, so I'm glad this is pretty much the end of it for today. Alright, everybody, take care, I'll catch you later.